Hey everybody, it's Haran. I want us to get ready to do a little bit of a linear perspective. And so at first, we'll start with some of the vocab. We've done that a little bit already, but linear, when we say linear perspective, that really is talking about lines. And specifically, it's talking about lines that go to a vanishing point. You know what, I'm just, on this first one, I'm just going to do a random point like this. Now what I want to show you is a way that we can cause something to recede into the background. I'm going to use this ruler. Notice I'm using both sides. I'm going to do the same thing here. I love these clear rulers because you see that I can use these marks right here and lay it on top of it, and in that way create perpendicular marks to this. Perpendicular only becomes important to us in this process because we want to make sure that all of our horizontal lines, or the lines that are laying down, are going to be parallel to one another, and that all of our lines which are verticals, or lines which are going straight up and down, are going to be parallel also. So we have three kinds of lines in these. We have horizontal lines, we have vertical lines, and then we have what I like to call the receding lines. These lines, they're usually diagonals, but they don't need to be. So notice I have the vanishing point, which is the point where if something were big enough to go back in infinity, it would vanish at a certain point. We're going to use it a little bit differently. Hey, one of the really cool things about these rulers is that their ability to create the parallel lines, and so I'm going to do that right here by, notice that I'm going to go lay this red line of the ruler across this line of my edge, and in this way, when I draw the background here, I have just created a parallel line. Now where that line intersects with this one, I want to have another parallel. I want it to be parallel with the front. So notice it was just a stroke of luck that the front happened to fall on almost the same mark. It won't always go that way, so we always think about where the lines intersect. So in a linear perspective, we're creating an illusion of things getting a little bit smaller in the background. I wanted to erase some of these vanishing points so that you can see how this works. So now we have an indication of a box of some sort right here. And this is sort of the whole shebang about the way that we work with linear perspective. All right, here's what I'm going to do. Remember, this is kind of an artificial method of doing it, but it's going to help the people who are OCD. If we really got into doing something, we would do it a little differently. Also, I'm going to ask you guys, on your own personal exercises, to draw a little bit lighter. And I'm drawing hard right now because I want you guys to be able to see this. And I know that our smartboard does not project very well. All right, so in our introduction, all that we're doing is creating these crosses, or these diagonals, from one corner to another. Where they intersect, that is going to become our vanishing point for our entire drawing. So now at this point, I'm going to start drawing each one of these lines parallel with the outside, and it would be an absolute miracle if I don't mess this up. All right, now here's something I want you to see on the bottom. By the way, these are all shaded, but we're not going to shade. It's only showing you a difference here. And the big difference I want to show you is this. Notice that when we have a medium-sized rectangle in the back of our room, the room seems kind of like like maybe a regular-sized room. If we make a very small rectangle, it's starting to seem more like a hallway, like it's receding very far into the distance. And if we do something like this and create a very large rectangle, it just feels very shallow, like maybe we're only seeing a portion of the room. Now you can do any one of those, but If you do it too shallow, you might not be able to get everything into it. If you do it too deep, then you're going to have to maybe come up with a lot of things to get into it. What I'm doing right here to make sure that I can get these things parallel, I'm sort of messing around. I know that this line here is parallel with the side of the page, so I'm going to measure out to 3.5 inches right here. The reason I'm going to 3.5 inches is because that's going to be an easy number for me to see over here. I know that some people have trouble reading rulers, especially as we get into the smaller ones, and my desire is to keep this as simple for you as possible. So I started with that mark, decided it wasn't a good idea, and then changed my evil ways. So now we have one line, and I like the line. It's parallel, seems to be parallel with that. I'm going to draw the bottom side. Now this time I'm going to use the method where I estimate. That is, you might notice I started here with the corner where this line intersects the diagonal or the receding line, and I brought my pencil up to that. As I look down at the bottom, I'm just judging now, is this width the same as this one? And it's definitely not. So I have to, I'm going to hold my ruler right on that point. I want it to stay, and then I rotate until it looks the same. Now that looks pretty close to me, so I'm going to hold this down really hard so that I can draw a line right here. I'm lost. So I can draw a line right here. Now I'm pretty confident with that line. Let me show you another method on the top. If I was to do this again, and once again I want to draw from this intersection, one thing that I can do is I can sort of measure with my pencil. I can lay my pencil right here, and I can either mark it with my finger, like I think that my finger is marking it right there. I can simply slide my whole pencil down here, and when I notice that this looks similar or the same down there or the same measurement, then I am confident that I can continue. It's that's kind of a very casual relationship, and frankly I don't think that the way I did it was just right. I'm going to try this again with this thing, the very tip of the pencil there, my thumbnail right there, and bang, I do get to move that up slightly. Cool jewels. Now, so you see how I measured something simply by putting one end of my tool next to it, and then I can move my thumb around. If there was that much space, I would hold my thumb there and I would move it from one place to another to make sure that I was getting the same measurement. Now, if we did our job well, we should just be able to connect these last two sides where the horizontal intersects this receding line. We should just be able to draw between those, and if we did our job well, it will seem rather rectangular, like each one of these is 90 degrees. And I think we're golden. Error 5. Pow. All right. Now I'm in lesson 1, and one of the things we're going to do is we're going to make a door. I am going to start over on this side. About this far out, I'm going to use the ruler. Notice I'm laying this red line right on top of the line of my wall there, and then I'm going to draw from the floor up towards the top. Now, since I'm Mr. Cool, I know that most doors are almost 7 feet tall, and most ceilings, at least for us lower middle class people, are about 8 feet tall. And so I get fairly close to the top there. Notice here's a little trick. I'm going to hold my pencil on the vanishing point, and then as I place my ruler against it, I can rotate the top of my ruler till it goes where I want. Bam. Now what I did was I just drew a vanishing point or a receding line from the top of the pencil down to here. I'm going to show you a trick on my next one, but first I'm drawing just the opposite side of the door. I think this might work. It seems like a big door, but I'm going to do it because I have the power. Cool. So now here's what we're going to do. We're going to draw a door frame now. So we have this shape that's like a door. And by the way, let me see when it does this. Oh, okay. It suggests that you put a little dot there, and then that seems like a door handle. I'm not buying it. Not buying it. Here's what I'm doing. I'm going to create a door frame on this side, which is 1/4 inch. Now I'm going to show you a little trick. I am going to estimate where I think this, this might be easier if I show you this way. I'm going to estimate where I think the door frame is going. I think it should be about that thick, but watch what I do. The ruler is going to the vanishing point. I don't need to draw my line all the way down there. I know that this line is only meant to go at the top of the door. So I did that, and now I'm going to draw another line to do the frame on this side. Now, this is kind of tricky. I did this side at 1/4 of an inch. I don't want to do this side at 1/4 of an inch because when things get farther away from us, they get smaller. There's mathematical or little tricky ways to do this, to recede it down, but they're kind of complicated and time consuming. So for this point, I'm just going to guess at how much smaller. I'm still using the ruler, yeah. And then I draw the frame around it that way. So now we have a door with a frame coming around it. And then I'm getting back to that pesky little doorknob. Now, in my house and in my world, the doorknobs are kind of round. And so instead of creating just a dot, I'm probably going to create a sphere. Now, as I said, we're not going to shade yet, but later on when we do, we can definitely shade these spherical doorknobs. In fact, if we want, we could even do a little cylinder there and start using our essential forms, which we've just learned and relearned. And so you see how that sort of looks a little bit more natural. And then we can go as far with that as we want. One really cool thing is when we decide that we're going to have a rectangular base behind this, we will create those in the same way, geez Louise, the same way that we do the doorknob. So like this. I would actually even do the sides of that in a linear perspective. And then we end up with something that is, I think it looks realistic. Now here's the thing, we're going to do a window into this door. And so one thing that I'm going to do, well, it's going to be just like making the door, except for it's floating. I am going to draw one side of the window, huzzah, to the top and the bottom. I am going to place my pencil at the vanishing point. I'm not going to draw all the way back. I could continue drawing, going all the way back to the vanishing point, but there's no need to do that because I know as long as my ruler is taking us to the vanishing point, I should be okay. All right. I am now going to put this side of the door on there, and this should be centered in some way, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to guess at this again. I'm still going to use, make sure that everything's parallel, but what I'm guessing at, so remember that as things get farther away from us, they get smaller. So if this is the thickness of the doorway, or the wideness of between the window and the edge of the door, it's going to be a little bit smaller over here, and so I'm just guessing. But I did make it a little bit smaller, and I think that looks effective. Bam! Nailed it.